Hey everybody, welcome to yet another release team meeting. For those who just joined, I pinged the link to the minutes in the chat. Please add your attendance in the minutes. And the usual disclaimer, I'm recording it right now, recording the entire meeting right now, which will go online in our YouTube channel. So please be mindful of what you're saying. With that, let's get rolling. So as I said, we are in week 5, almost at the midpoint. I think this is where this release gets really squished. It feels like when I go through the calendar, it feels like week 5, 6, 7 of the usual cycle is almost between this week and part of next week. So we are quickly proceeding towards our other milestones later next week. As for announcements, we cut our Alpha 2 early last week. Thanks to Hannes, our branch management shadow was able to successfully cut it and publish the bits. We still needed Doug to do some notify steps at the end. But other than that, it was super smooth to get the release both staged and published. So thanks, Hannes, for doing that. We have Alpha 3, which will go out on Wednesday this week. Again, this is mainly to give Yang, our other shadow, a chance to try the pipeline itself. So Alpha 3 is slated for Wednesday. And as I promised last week, I started a release log for 113. At this point, it's just a random list of things that I can think of as we roll through the release. It's in no specific order of flow, but there are subdivisions for things that I kind of started keeping track of during the release. I've given the entire release team edit access to it, so feel free to add to any of the sections where you might have more historical context or more data on how we did it in the past releases. As we go through it towards the end of the release, I'll formalize it a little bit more, clean it up, and then we'll see where we can document it. Next up, our upcoming dates. Our beta 0, which is when we cut our release branch and create the CI and everything, is scheduled for next Wednesday. That is 11/6. We'll talk about the status of beta and if we are still going to make that date as we talk about the CI signal. But in the calendar, it's scheduled for next Wednesday. And the tasks there, I don't know if Doug is on the call today. But yeah, we'll cut our branch and our daily fast forward start from that point. I will coordinate with Doug to make sure the date still works for him. And as for test infra, we have a couple of deliverables there as well. I don't see Cole on the call, but I will again follow up with him offline, where we need our CI jobs created for the new branch somewhere after we cut the beta and before code slush, which is scheduled for next Friday. And of course, once the CI jobs are created, we need CI signals to start monitoring those jobs as well. And that takes us to the next milestone next week, which is code slush, where again, one of the deliverable for Cole was to formalize the labels that will then block merges for around code slush time. So any questions around that? Cool. With that, let's move on to enhancements. Kendrick?
How's it going, everyone? We are officially in freeze after last week, so thank you to everybody on the team that helped really put together a lot of minds to kind of get that to where it was, getting on all the issues themselves, as well as the shadows stepping up and helping around there as well. We really knocked it out of the park on that one. So there are 34 current issues of which are being tracked with inside there. It's down from 3 before we went into the freeze as well. There were a total of 13 that were either deferred or we had removed from the milestone, and one of them included one that was included after the freeze. I think it was there for maybe a solid 6 hours until we said, okay, well, we're going to pull it out. And that was the 6 CLI lead sort of shot that one down for a binary called customize that was going to go into the CLI. However, there was a little bit of confusion about where it should be inside the process, as well as being renamed. And so we kind of went with the 6 CLI's lead on that one and saying we're going to go ahead and push this to 114. The other thing that you had written down here is looking to this week and next week is actually looking at the open PRs with inside of each issue and going through KK and seeing exactly where they are in the process, and if we need to ping some of the owners, whether it has to be for code review or for tests or anything like that, just to make sure it's consistently getting a little bit of churn in there. I will probably need a little bit of help in that next week. I'm going to be out Monday through Wednesday next week, but I will be back on the Thursday the 8th to help and sort of track down anything remaining or anything else that we need to put at risk going into code slush at that point.
Yeah. Let me and Nico know if you need us to, divide and conquer along with the shadows. More than happy to pick up some tasks there.
Fantastic. And then I'll let you kind of get an update on the KubeADM GA, because I know that you were pinging some of the issue owners in there to kind of see exactly. And that's also a thing that's happening in some of the issues themselves, is they are these umbrella issues. And so it's just getting to a point now where we have an idea of what is actually the PRs that we should be tracking for each one of these and how it's progressing for each of these stages as well.
Yeah. So this is something that I am a little bit concerned about, mainly because Code Slush is just a week and a half away, and I'm not sure on the exact status of where things are. I see Lubomir on the call. I'm not. Do you have any updates on the progress of the issue itself, Lubomir?
So we have a certain issue that we use for tracking, and that's in the KubeADM repo.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a lot of PRs. It's going to be very difficult for you to track all of them.
Yeah. My request was more of, is there a ETA from by when we expect all of them to merge and be called done? Because we have about 3 tracking issues in the enhancements repo. So one of my question was, should we close especially issue number 296 and 356 in favor of the umbrella issue, which basically is tracking kubeadmin going to GA?
Yeah, that's more of a question for Timothy St. Clair, and he should get back to you on this. I also have a problem with these. I think that we should unify them.
Yeah. Initially, when we got on the SIG cluster lifecycle call, they were going to close all sub-issues and just track the umbrella issue alone, but I still see them open. So that was one of my concern. And of course, we do see some of the test failures as well. So could you give a status update on what's going on there and when basically we can expect things to stabilize?
That's the question for KubeADM.
Mm-hmm.
So we resolved the GC master failing test, but we still have one to resolve. That's the stable on master. That's a separate issue. I made a comment in the CI section. To be honest with you, I think these umbrella issues are a bigger concern.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other part in this whole thing is docs as well. I'm not sure if any of the docs PRs have been open at this point, and what the story there is. Kendrick, do you think you'll have time to hop onto the cluster lifecycle meeting tomorrow? If not, I would do that, but then I'm going to be in a shuttle tomorrow at that time.
Yeah, I can.
No, there is no meeting tomorrow.
When is the next call, Lubomir?
Well, nowadays we have it bi-weekly.
I see. Okay.
Next.
Okay, I think I will follow up with Timothy via email, and then if need be, then we can ask him to join our release meeting next week to give a little bit more update on the status of things. But yeah, this seems like a black box to me, and I would like to get more update and also time box the remaining work, so that we can make a call for 113 sooner than later.
Yeah, so the biggest things in terms of docs are we basically need to change a bunch of commands. Like we are moving commands from an alpha state to a GA state directly. And that is something we should address, but that's an easy change. We don't have any big PRs that for the website repo that we should write, to be honest.
Okay.
At least that's what I know.
Okay. All right. I'll follow up offline. I pinged the umbrella issue as well, but I think it's time we need some human follow up on this as well.
Yeah, I feel like maybe if I were in Tim's shoes, I'd be like, why are you giving me a hard time? We still have plenty of time until code slush. But what it sounds like to me we're missing is some transparency on what the problem is and how it's being worked. That's really the only thing that's throwing us off here is the appearance that failures mysteriously crop up, and then it seems as though nobody but perhaps yourself, Lubomir, are actually noticing that these failures happen. And I'm sure it's because there's lots of follow-up work to make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. But from the release team's perspective, making sure that things are always running and always green is a really important thing to us. So,
yeah, nowadays we have notifications to the.
Yeah, I lurk on the cluster lifecycle list, so I really appreciate that. I saw that happening. And I also noticed you seem to be the only one kind of following up on them.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to respond immediately to release team members if there is anything.
Thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate that. It's just as Aaron said, the other parts I don't have much transparency into. So, cool. Is there anything else, Kendrick, you want to add? If not, we can move to CI signal.
Nope, go ahead and move on. Thank you.
Okay. Josh, right there.
Yeah, I'm not completely updated. I've been a little distracted by other things this morning.
Okay.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, check the tech news. Overall, we're improving. A lot of stuff has gotten closed over the last 5 days. I do need to check up on those closures because we've had a dismaying tendency of people to put fixes, issue number, whatever, in their PRs, which results in auto closures of broken tests that aren't necessarily fixed. But barring following up on that, our main issues, master blocking is looking good. We just have that one kubeadmin failure, which is new. It's the upgrade tests that are problematic. Because master upgrade, I mean, it's still improved. Right now we've got 4 tests failing, although a lot of the others are, of course, flaky as usual, which is still a source of concern.
Yeah.
Now, of the ones that are failing, 3 that are failing that are just marked as failing too often and or flaking too often are GKE tests. No, 2 of them are GKE tests. My tendency is to ignore those from a blocker perspective, based on Aaron's new, blocking test criteria. The GKE tests don't qualify. They have never ever been stable, and out of the last 3 failures we've had diagnosed with those tests, 2 of them turned out to be problems with the GKE platform itself. But we still have this ongoing problem, one with a scheduler issue, and the other one with HPA auto-scaling, and both of those have been open for weeks.
Yeah.
Both of those are being worked on, but turnaround's very slow. I'm not, I've been interacting with the SIGs about those issues, trying to get more effort on them, and it just
So
I don't honestly think things are going to accelerate until we say, okay, beta is supposed to be a week away, but we're planning on delaying it now based on these 2 tests.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you for some data, Josh. When you
Yeah.
say that people are being slow to turn things around, you're going to have to start proving how you're measuring that and with
Yeah.
what publicly available data.
Mhm.
This is not me, like,
Right.
just because this is going to help us as we look to
Yeah.
build the reliability metrics into
Right.
jobs. It's something that is going to have to be kind of hand-rolled, I guess, for now.
Yeah.
Because like the broader criteria are kind of going to be like when the job started going red and when the job went green. And so that tells us worst case, like how long did it take the job to get back to green. But the humans are going to start to jump up and down and say, well, like, I didn't know this was a problem until X. So we're going to, at least for the short term.
So let me give you an example here for the HBA test, right? I first noticed that was failing 25 days ago because it was basically failing when I started a CI signal.
And did you open an issue at that point?
Opened an issue at that time. One of the SIG leads assigned it to Joachim, who's been working on it. He did some analysis of the failure 20 days ago and then submitted his first PR 6 days ago. So there were 2 weeks elapsed between looking into the failing test and coming up with the first PR. The first PR did not fix the problem.
Okay.
There were about 6 or so tests failing, and for what it was worth, it kind of fixed the other 5.
Yeah.
And there's this one thing that's continuing to fail.
And so I don't know if we necessarily have to walk through the full story for each and every.
But you asked what I was saying when I meant slow to turn around, and that's slow to turn around.
I think those data
Both
points.
of those tests, people are working on them, but each step in working on them takes 2 to 3 days, which is not completely unreasonable. But when you add it up through several trials of how do I fix this, you suddenly find out that 3 weeks have gone by and the test is still not fixed.
Sure, I understand that. So I think what I'm asking for is some view of that in the aggregate. If you have some kind of spreadsheet or report where you can show us for every failure that you've been tracking when you first noticed it, when you first got a response, when they first tried to fix it, and when the problem was finally solved. I think that those could be some useful numbers to help us understand like who's being responsive and why.
Okay.
I'm thinking of we can map those. Eventually, we can map those to if we mandate that people have test grid or alerts sent to them, like Cluster Lifecycle is doing. Thank you again very much. If they're sent to publicly accessible Google groups, we can start to use that as time, and we spread the message that people need to actually be subscribed to those Google groups who are going to be in charge of maintaining tests. We can start to kind of piece that together ourselves. But in the meantime, it sounds like you've been keeping a pretty good log of this. So maybe that's something you and I can collaborate on offline. As far as your statement about the GKE tests and ignoring them, I agree with that. I have had to sort of float that idea around internally, and we'll be moving forward with that today. And I will reach out to you to make sure that we make sure you're using the right processes, that I'm not stepping on your toes, that we've got the right docs kept up to date, things like that.
Okay.
Again, the 2 GKE tests also seem to be tripped only on the horizontal pod and serial, whatever at this point, the serial scheduler priorities.
Hold on. I'm looking at GKE. That's failing the scheduler test. The other one was failing something else.
It's
random.
It's the HPA one as far as it, but they are flaky at best. So
I mean, it's just it's if they're failing the same tests that other tests that are failing elsewhere, then obviously we're going to get on those tests. I'm just that if it was next week and those were the only tests that were red, I would not consider those a blocker.
Yep. So that just brings us to the next question as to at what point do we block beta 0? I think we're tracking the kubeadmin, the scheduler priority, and the HPA one, right? There are a couple of other intermittent flakes. but we do like to see these three kind of fixed and passing, at least on the GC jobs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, the things where we are seeing failures in upgrade do not look like test artifacts to me. These look like areas where real users would run into trouble upgrading or downgrading.
Makes sense. Cool. Yeah, let's track these closely this week, and yeah, we'll make a call early next week. We still have till Wednesday of next week. Cool. Is there anything else, Josh? Or?
No. Well, I want to say our active test grid is now working. So I wanted to really thank Nico for that, because it makes it easier for us to sort of track things on an ongoing basis. And so what happens there for people who looked at it is we've got like 8 columns that are automatically populated from open issues. And then another 5 columns that I and the CI Signal team maintain to update status on issues. And those are now kind of complete lists. It does mean that we have a few old things that we don't actually care about in there, but there wasn't a good way to filter out the old things we don't care about and still include the old things that we do care about. So so that's in there for follow-ups, and particularly we're populating a column that says whether or not we should block on this failure based on which test that it's on, whether or not it looks like in actual failure or a test failure that might be masking other information. And further than that, one of the things that I've been doing is I've been tagging anything that I consider a blocker important soon or above. When we come to beta, we'll separate things out by milestone. But right now, any test that's important soon or critical urgent is something that's considered a blocker.
Awesome.
Okay.
Any questions? If not, we'll move on to bug triage. Great. Okay. Nico's not going to be able to join us today, but yeah, we kind of going forward, as Josh was saying, we also have an automated spreadsheet for bug issues and PR tracking as well, which Nico put together. But the spreadsheet is hitting some rate limits that Nico is actively working on. But going forward, I would like to kind of have a blown status of the bugs in here, in keeping with what we did with the previous releases, because it gives us good insight into which issues or which PRs might not have complete labels, and also kind of helps us scrub them pretty easily. So as of yesterday, we have, this is all our open issues on 113 that are either kind bug or kind cleanup. These exclude any feature issues, flaky or failing tests. We have one critical urgent, which there's some active traction on it, and we have about 11 important soon. So this week, Nico and I would be working mainly on these important soon, just to get a status on where they are, and just to make sure we let folks know that Code Slush is just a week away. And there are about 11 that need labels to be completed. They're either missing kind or priority. So this is what we would tackle first. Just work with owners to figure out if it's still in scope for 113. If so, add the milestone and fill up all the labels, or remove from milestone if it's not related to any enhancement work at this point. Yeah, so that's what Nico will be focusing on. Is there any questions or anything that we should be doing at this point? Cool. Next up is docs. Tim?
Hey, yeah. How's it going? So we're definitely behind where we want to be with docs. We've got the placeholder PR deadline upcoming really soon, and then the actual docs deadline following up soon after. So going to be making a really big push this week to get to a place where we're happy. So behind, but need to make a push there. Also, we'll be generating the generated documentation for the next beta. So that will be available once that comes out.
So beta 1, right? Or
sorry, beta 0 is the next one, isn't that right?
yes, yes, but I don't think we actually. It's more of a release branch cut and generating all the release artifacts. Tim Pepper is on the call. You can correct me if I'm. But from what I believe, it's not an actual release, but more of cutting the release branch and generating the CI jobs and everything.
There is no actual beta.0. It's a pure artifact from the release tooling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So for beta.1, that we'll get that out.
Thanks, Caleb. I didn't see you there. Cool. So yeah, I think you still have another week to shore up those things, but awesome. Great. And if you need any, I've been pinging, as I ping enhancement PRs, I've been like kind of asking them for docs updates as well. But if you need help in, again, divvying up the job of bugging folks for docs, let us know.
Yeah, I think I'll probably see where we are on Wednesday. And if we haven't made any like significant progress, I might reach out for help from people.
That's good. Finally, Mike, on release notes, do you have any updates? If not.
My only update is that so far no release notes via commits, but I started working with Stephen on the enhancements tracking spreadsheet that he has in order to populate things like major themes and stuff like that in the release notes document, which, previously has been mostly a manual amalgamation, but, since this is a short release and then there's not a lot of activity in release notes generated from commits, and it's early still, but might be a good opportunity to expand the document that we generate with additional sources. So that's what I'm working on now. But Stephen was on vacation last week, so I think he should be back this week. So I'm going to be working with him a bit more on that, I believe.
They actually got a full week training this week, but who knows now that they're one happy family.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Yeah. I have a placeholder on the calendar, like somewhere mid-slush to just check and have like a straw man draft of the release themes, just so that folks can start chiming in and say, stabilizing things a little bit and adding more context. Cool. Is there, I see Caitlin on the call. Caitlin, do you have anything to say? If not, that brings us to the end of the agenda.
No major updates from me. We're in good shape. The next thing on my list is to get the features meeting on the calendar to decide what we'll highlight in the blog post.
Awesome. Do you know when do you plan on having that?
Ideally this week, if not early next week.
That's all I had. It's pretty much nothing major at this point. Any other thoughts, updates, feedback? Cool. If not, we'll be done early.
Early is good.
Half an hour. Yeah, one thought I was having while putting up the release notes was, do we really need an hour-long meeting initially? But then we did seem to fill them a lot during the initial part of the release. Yeah, it's something we can think about, but yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody. Happy Monday.
Thank you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
See you all on Slack.